So for my topic, I decided to go for the ethical issues that surround the metaverse because it's a very controversial and touchy subject in the sense that we have not truly experienced it at the moment and it's still in development. And regardless of this, a lot of people are already thinking about the ethical implications that the meta could have in our lives. So before diving into the ethics behind the metaverse, I'd like to explain what the metaverse is so you can also critique it and develop your own thoughts as well. So basically, an example that could display what the metaverse could look like in the future could be The Matrix. Very great movie, where the world is a digital simulation that everyone is connected to and is so well made that nearly no one even knows that it's not real. So in essence, the metaverse is not quite like that, but over time it could actually develop and have the potential to be something very similar to that. So basically, the idea behind the metaverse has been around for much longer than what Meta is, as Facebook describes it, Mark, more than anything. Mark Zuckerberg refers to the metaverse as an embodied internet that you're actually inside of instead of just looking at it. So the real meaning of the metaverse is just as broad as Zuckerberg's like vague description of it. At its most basic, the metaverse is actually a virtual reality that allows people from all over the world to interact, both with each other and with the metaverse as well. So users are often allowed to obtain items that remain theirs between sessions or even land within the metaverse. However, there are many ways to interpret that concept and it has evolved greatly over the years. So, what are the differences between the metaverse and what we know as virtual reality today? So, basically, in simple terms, virtual reality, also better known as VR or augmented reality, are both concepts that are closely tied to the metaverse, but they are not one and the same. So, instead of viewing them as different iterations of what is essentially the same thing, it's good to view them as separate entities that actually supplement each other. So VR and AR equipment allows the user to immerse themselves in a virtual world. In the case of VR, we are shown completely different surroundings, be it a game or a movie, and VR also lets you interact with the changing world around you, while AR, on the other hand, adds elements to your real surroundings and lets you actually interact with them in various ways. So the difference lies in the purpose. So you can play a VR or AR game at any given time without interacting with others. But the foundation of the metaverse, as envisioned by Meta and other companies, is actually the human contact. So, four key differences between the metaverse and virtual reality are that the virtual reality is actually well defined and the metaverse it's not. So, what does that mean? Well, so as mentioned before, descriptions from Zuckerberg, like the one mentioned before, which states that the metaverse is an embodied internet that you're inside of and not just looking at, are pretty vague. So, when compared to our understanding of virtual reality, it's also impossible that even the tech companies themselves they don't even have a complete definition for it. So, another difference is that the metaverse includes a shared virtual world. The metaverse is a shared virtual space that users will actually be able to access via the internet. Again, this is something that VR headsets obviously already allow you to do. So the virtual space in the metaverse also sounds similar to that which we already exist in the virtual reality programs. Users are expected to be identified by personal avatars who will interact with each other in virtual locations. In addition to this, they will be able to purchase or build virtual items and environments such as NFTs or even land virtually. We've seen parcels sell online for millions of dollars of properties sold in within the metaverse that is still in development. So we can see how uh, individuals are actually investing a lot in this today. So the primary differences is that while existing virtual worlds are limited in size, the metaverse sounds like it will provide access to the entire internet. So basically, the metaverse could potentially be even bigger than virtual reality. So virtual reality, as of now, is used for education, therapy, and sports, but it is still arguably the best known as a type of entertainment. The metaverse, at least in terms of scale, sounds a lot more like a new and improved version of the internet. It's expected to change the way people work, access social media, and even surf the web, meaning that while many people have completely ignored virtual reality, the same is unlikely to happen with the metaverse itself. Another difference is that metaverse will not be limited to virtual reality technology. So the metaverse will not be limited to technology. Instead, it will be accessible both by augmented reality devices and any device you already use to connect to the internet. So this opens the door to various features not possible with VR alone. For example, augmented reality will allow aspects of the metaverse to be projected in real world, like the videos we've seen that Facebook has been releasing. Also, virtual spaces will also be designed so that they can be accessed anywhere with no headsets required. So, how is ethics actually involved in this whole situation surrounding the metaverse? So, as seen in recent controversies like with Facebook and how it should be regulated for breach of privacy or for generating addictive platforms, we could experience something similar with the metaverse, since it could be a digital paradise or the most addictive thing ever created. And once it is filled with AI based realistic characters with real personalities and emotions, we'll find ourselves in dilemmas about how to treat those characters. So, a lot of concern about the metaverse has to do with how to curtail toxicity or bad behavior, where players are harassing or bullying someone. It should be the responsibility of the creators of the metaverse to make it a safe space for everyone, since just about everyone is likely to be in it. So, moreover than that, ethical norms can actually change over time, such as views about sexuality and other issues as well. So basically, the context has changed. So the challenge has also changed because when we first started out with these online experiences, whether they were virtualized, and it is just didn't bring as much of a real world into them as they do now. So if you're playing a game, you're speaking to somebody else by typing away. Soon, however, the metaverse will be much more likely be like similar to the real world. For example, in my case, I've played video games my whole life. I know the difference between playing FIFA, which is a soccer online game, versus playing the actual sport, which is something that will be implemented in the metaverse, make it give that real life experience. So, on another perspective, if people view the metaverse as an adjunct to reality and not reality itself, then people will behave differently. So, in the future, non player characters might be more realistic or even smarter than us. They might have self awareness, empathy, compassion, and other characteristics that make us human. And that changes the rules on how you can behave while interacting with these non player characters. This might even happen soon, or might happen, or may take 50, 60, 100 years. Who knows how long it may take to get there, or if it will even get there. So that raises a lot of ethical questions. So, like, are you killing the AI people if you erase their database or switch it off? Could you bring them back again, or at least copies of them? Or what happens if you demean them by making copies of those AI characters? So, if you create a virtual world for the sake of just killing characters, have you become a mass murderer? So, we have not evolved to that stage of the metaverse. This is speculation on what the ethical issues may actually arise depending on how it evolves. For that reason, the metaverse should be aggressively regulated. So, what about regulations? So, we need to restrict the level of monitoring allowed in the metaverse, of course. So, the platform providers will have access to where you go, what we look at, who we talk to, even what we reach out and touch. So, they should not be allowed to store this data for more than the short periods of time that is required to mediate whatever experience is being actually simulated. That will reduce the degree to which they can characterize our behaviors over time. In addition to this, they should be required to inform the public as to what's being tracked and how long it's being retained. For example, if they're monitoring the direction of your gaze, you should need to be overly notified. In addition to this, we need to regulate how third parties can manipulate us within the metaverse. That's because with AR and VR technology, marketing will not be the over pop up ads we actually have today on our phones, but subtle simulated additions to our world that look and actually feel real. If a third party pays for a virtual product placement in your augmented surroundings, the platform should be required to inform you that it's a targeted placement, not a surreptitious interaction within the realm. Ultimately, the metaverse will enable amazing applications that enrich our lives, expanding what it means to be human, and at the same time, there are very real dangers that we need to avoid. The best way to enable the magic while preventing the dangers is to aggressively regulate the space. And we need to do it now before the problems become so deeply embedded in the infrastructure and business models that they are impossible to unwind.